And the big question is there a way forward for Europe's space competitiveness? Now, I think we can all agree that Europe has built a very capable, a very world-class industry, capable of incredible things. But the big question is, why are we falling behind on an international scale? And more importantly, how can we catch up? Well, why don't we bring two experts in to tell us more about it? So please welcome my next two panelists, ladies and gentlemen, Hermann Ludwig Müller and Guillaume Delabrosse. Welcome, gentlemen. So,
thank you.
Nice to have you. Welcome. Welcome.
Good to see you.
So, please, gentlemen, how are we feeling today, first of all?
Oh, great. Yes, a good start. Nice place. Absolutely. We are in space here, right?
We're in space. That's right. It feels like it. How about you?
Made up. So I'm very happy. Premiere. So that's great. Very happy to be with you.
Great to be with you guys on stage here. We're going to jump right into the topic, like I said before, talking about Europe's space competitiveness. And we basically have two very different, I think, different perspectives on this topic here on stage now with us. Now, on the one side, once again, we have Hermann, who is the director of the European Space Policy Institute. And on the other side, we have Guillaume, who is the head of Unit Space Policy European Commissions. Also, once again, great to have you. And we're very, very excited to get your opinions on this topic. Now, let's start it off with the first question. What are the key trends and challenges that you see that are shaping the European and also global space sectors?
I give it a go, yeah. Let me start just from a distance. So scale is number one, if I just want to make it in simple terms, and industry capability. And if I break this down, I'd like maybe to talk about trends, what is global and what is European. And when it's global, I think the biggest trend change right now is linked to Trump and Musk and maybe Amazon. So it's really a dynamic that we need to be able to digest in Europe. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, which has been with us since a while, it's only accelerating, security and defense, here triggered by Ukraine, but it's a topic in all space powers, China, US, since always. And next to this, human space exploration, going to the moon, those are really the big things that happen out there. And I would add China, obviously. So those are the four: China, Trump, Musk, moon, and security and defense. If I go to Europe, I think the trend is we are doing great on space applications. And Raphael, in an earlier panel, he said, this is a bit almost like looking back. And then you talk about commercial space stations now and maybe resources on the moon in 20 years from now. So this is a bit the axis. So we have a very solid foundation, but this is not enough, because you see right now that industry is under enormous stress, bigger industries. We see consolidation happening. We even see it here with the operator in Luxembourg, SES. We see that we are now seeing the consequences not only of reusable launchers that we missed. In fact, I was here 10 years ago when decisions were taken on Ariane 6 that put us on the track which we try to recover today. So we need to be careful on decisions on the long run. Mm-hmm. But there is a change from geostationary orbit to LEO orbit, which Europe has not adjusted to. And I think there are many of these elements. It comes to also, when it comes to scale of investment, you look into what is happening in Germany, where the space budgets are stagnating, if not going down right now. We're looking forward to the ministerial of ESA. We're looking into the next financial framework to scale up. And not to mention launcher, go beyond Ariane 6. So there's a lot of challenging trends in Europe. There's a lot of super dynamics globally.
Thank you for your take on that. Just realizing, do we have the same socks on?
Not exactly the same, do we?
I think it's for the same collection, though.
Looking for stars.
Give us your take on trends.
I mean, on opportunity, risks and opportunities, I see two big challenges for the years to come. One is clearly competitiveness, and the second one is resilience or preparedness. So on competitiveness, what we see, as mentioned by Ludwig, is on one side we have large corporates in space that are suffering. because of the fierce pressure coming from the US, and that mainly on two business segments, the rocket industry and the telecom industry. You have seen in the news the layoffs that were announced, consolidation, you mentioned that. So this is a clear worry that we have when it comes to our large corporates, the legacy industry in Europe. So that's risk number one when it comes to competitiveness. The risk number two is the new space companies. We have lots of startups, scale-ups across Europe, and this is a sign of vitality. This is booming. That's good news. In terms of deals, we are number two across the planet when it comes to fundraising. So that's a good sign of vitality of Europe when it comes to new space. But the risk that we have is that when it comes to making the real business, those companies are likely to go to the US where they will find growth capital. Because, when it comes to building a facility, mass manufacturing, you need financial firepower, you need big fundraising, and that, we don't have that in Europe for the time being. So the risk is that we are a nice nursery to have plenty of startups and scale-ups, but actually the real business will be done in the US. So that's a risk number two when it comes to competitiveness. In terms of opportunity, so the second big challenge is preparedness, resilience. You mentioned that. We have now a big crisis. Security threats are pressing. So we need our industry to get ready for that. We need our space assets to be fit for purpose for this new geopolitical context. So that the big challenge, the challenge number two when it comes to the upcoming years. And for the Commission, clearly, there's two drivers, competitiveness and preparedness, that will stay with us for the upcoming years. That will really frame the space policy of the upcoming years. One opportunity is defense. Clearly, defense now is a huge market, including for space. And that's a massive opportunity. We need, therefore, to break silos between space and defense, but that's a massive opportunity for the space economy as well, for the space business, to be able to provide services to defense ministries. So this is the massive opportunity in the upcoming years.
I think that partially actually answers my next question, which would have been, in the face of rising global competition, where do you see, where does Europe stand? Where does Europe have chances to keep up with its competitors in US and China?
I would completely agree that the one game changer is security and defense. It sounds strange to say that, but it's the one opportunity for space to scale up in Europe. The other would have been or could be human exploration. If you go to the US, you go to the moon, this is the NASA budget. It's about 25 billion a year. You have about the same budget on the defense side. Those are the two drivers of any space power, be it China, be it the US, be it what India is stepping up to. Now, will we be able in Europe to step up to the two at the same time? That is a big question mark. There are ambitions. There are first steps also on exploration. But I think right now the big change is really security and defense. And then the question really is, if you do this, how do you deal with industry on this? What is the industrial ecosystem to also give new space and opportunity in this? Because it is more a traditional domain. These are not the most dynamic industry structures that typically work in defense. So we need to marry the energy of the new space dynamics and the space dynamics with the ecosystem of industrial complex. In the US, there are right now two strategies published by the Pentagon and by Space Force on the integration of commercial into security and defense solutions. This is something we need to look into as well.
Anything to add?
Yeah, just to add, I think when we are looking, China is a different model, but when we look at what the US is doing, it's quite interesting to draw lessons from what they're doing and try to replicate. It's not about catching up. I think we'll never manage to catch up. It's trying to draw lessons from what the US is doing and see whether we can apply certain good or the best practices. And for me, what we need to learn is, one, how can we simplify things? Like change the way we do space. And this is responsibility of space agencies or the Commission, public authorities, so that we should be much more output-driven. We should tell industry this is what we need, and this is the time we need it, and get it done. The way you want, but get it done. So less interference in the way the industry is developing product and services or technologies, but we want to buy something at a certain point of time. And then we need to tell industry, you need to get that done. But that requires from us as well a change of mindset when it comes to procurement, for instance. So that's something that we need to do. Second thing that we need to do is more private investments. We will never manage through public investment to catch up with US. US, they're investing 5 times more than what we are doing in terms of public investment, 4 times more in terms of private investment. I think one of the key leverage is, the key thing will be how can we leverage more private investment through public money. And that to have this much more financial firepower, because we need budget as well. And the third element is, instead of having 27 small markets, let's create a big common European market. So we need to defragment, we need to avoid, there is one big trend that is worrying for the timing, is this renationalization of space policies. So doing space business within, the 27 member states in a silo manner. That's something that we need to break. So we need to really create this common space market that gives as well opportunities for the space industry to grow. So that's, for me, we need to play with those assets, clearly.
If I can add to the chat. We're in Luxembourg, and in GDP terms, Luxembourg by far outperforms any European member state in investment in space. If all of Europe, if all European states invested the 0.22% that Luxembourg puts into space of its GDP, we would have an annual space budget of 40 billion euro. Today it's 14, so that gives you an idea. Secondly, I think Europe still today is an economic power that could do these investments. And do not forget, we may think these are big numbers. They are big numbers. It's taxpayer money. We should be careful and efficient. But compared to pharmaceutical and other sectors, I think this is not, those are not dramatic numbers. It is something that Europe can do. Macron talks about Europe stepping up to 3% GDP for R&D. He puts space in the same league as artificial intelligence. So let's take politicians by the word and maybe translate it into ambition. I'm not saying that we can just simply match the US, but I think we should also have an ambition, in particular in the next year or 2 or 3, because this is going to be financial decisions on either side, preparations on the Commission side. We need to scale up. Without the scale up, not only the manufacturers, which today are suffering, but maybe tomorrow the operators, including operators in this country, they may be in trouble. This is a domino. If you tip the domino, there is a chain, and it will hit new space as any other industry. Scale matters. And Europe has the talent, it has the people, it has the industry, it has industrial capabilities, it has a super space application system with Copernicus, Galileo, we hope for Iris². Let's take this to the next level. Let's put this into applications, more applications. We had examples. Let's address security and defense, and let us scale. For me, this is the biggest message that we should bring from this conference. Without scale, we will not matter tomorrow. We have India scaling up, we have China scaling up, we have the Emirates scaling up. I'm not mentioning the US.
It's a fire chat, so I'm replying. So,
go for it.
No,
yeah.
I'm very happy. Of course, we need to scale, but I think it's not sufficient, because we are very good at asking always for more budget, bigger budget. But I think it needs to come together with changing the way we spend that budget. Again, for me, it's a win-win. And this, what we get out of our budget, we need to maximize it as well. It's not business as usual. We need to change the way we do this business, including when it comes to public authorities. So, on one side, we need more, but we need to spend it better. As simple as that.
Absolutely agreed. Now, if the chat continues, I perfectly agree. I mean, every actor, that is true for national investments, it is true for investments through ESA, it is true for the EU space program, it's a cooperation between all of this. There is not a question. It is also true for the big industries. It is also true for the new space segment. It is true for all actors. We all need to improve from the bottom up also. But there has to be the top-down action. This is a political action. I say this as the director of the European Space Policy Institute. And it's a recognition that I came to myself, because we do good stuff in Europe. But I don't think we reach really the level that we need to reach these days. And you mentioned the national. It is true, we are quite a diverse community of 27 or 22 states, how you count it. This will not change tomorrow. 80% of the budget are in national budgets. This will not change tomorrow. We had the Minister of Economy speaking in the introduction. It's not a coincidence. It's the Minister of Economy of a country. We need to leverage these dynamics. We need to work also in this national, intergovernmental, and EU framework together. I don't think there is a choice, and I think we need to really get going quick. I think this is happening as we go. We can maybe probably still be quicker.
My question as a layman, maybe from the outside looking in, would be like, who has to start? You know what I mean? Like, who takes the first step?
Yeah,
It's a tango.
Huh?
it's a tango.
It's a tango. We need to do it together.
Yeah.
So now, but clearly, I mean, so if you want, I mean, what we've done in the past years was like testing things. It was a bit of a lab, testing new ways of doing procurement, testing the ways a new space company would grow, what they can offer, how they can partner with legacy companies. Now, as you said it, now we need to scale that up. So we need to move from the lab to the fab, right? And for me, this is the next mission. When it comes to the next MFF, this is like turning what we have tested into the backbone of the European space policy to make this change happen, really. So Commission will play a big role because, again, we'll have a new budget. We will define the boundaries of the next European space policy. But one of the key partners for us, including an implementing partner that is developing research and development activities, that is developing satellites that we need, will be the European Space Agency. So of course, and this is about acting together to make that change happen. There is no way we can act in silos in the future. So we need to act together to make that change happen. And I think we have common objectives. We want to ensure that we still have world-class assets. We want to have, to have an industry that is highly competitive, not just in Europe, but globally as well. So we have common objectives. It's just a matter of aligning as much as we can the instruments and the budgets.
Let me open up another topic here and talk a bit about a tool, which also plays into what you just said, but some more tools to support the industrial capacity. If we look at Cassini, for example, which has boosted network startups and also venture capital in the past, and now look at Cassini 2.0, which basically aims at funding new space companies to streamline procurement, some of the things you just talked about, but also ensuring Europe's leadership and also autonomy in space innovation. What do you think are the main challenges faced by European space startups and also, you know, small and medium-sized enterprises today, and what can Europe do to support these?
Okay. So in terms of, so again, what we see is we have lots of new space companies, and Europe is really the second home to the development of new space companies. Mm-hmm. We have more than 800 startups and scale-ups. We have lots of success stories. It's not just about startups. We have success stories. I'd like to mention ICEYE in the field of Earth observation. ICEYE is a company that started, more than 10 years ago with a grant, a small grant, as part of Horizon 2020. Now, there are more than close to 40 satellites. They have actually the biggest worldwide constellation of radar satellites. Mm-hmm. They're providing massive support to Ukraine. That's success story number one. We have, in Germany, we have in the rocket industry a company called ESA Aerospace. It's an amazing company as well that is about to do the first maiden flight, and that has a unique manufacturing capacity as well. Amazing. So we have D-Orbit in Italy. So we have lots of success stories across Europe that we need to really accompany. And the thing is that, again, so today we have lots of startups. We are testing them. But what they need is, one, access to finance, risk capital. As I mentioned, they need access to growth capital. So today, a company managed to go through pre-seed, seed, Series A fundraising, but when it comes to raising 150, 200 million euros, this is where it gets very difficult. And sometimes they have to look for non-EU investors. So that's challenge number one. This is not just specific to space. This is specific to all deep tech industry, but that's where we need to do our act together, Commission, so to really have this financial firepower. The challenge number two for those companies, even more important than getting access to equities, is getting access to public contracts, because they need to generate revenues. So they need sticky contracts with public authorities. So this is something we have done over the past years to give a chance to those companies to get access to public contracts in the field of Copernicus, Earth observation, for instance, but we will do it in the field of the rocket industry. But we need to do it much more. We need to be very fast in doing that, and we need to accept taking some risk to do it, because there is a risk appetite element in it. We are taking risk. If we are awarding contract to new space companies, of course we are taking some risk. But I think, all in all, it's a good return investment, because it's good for competitiveness, it's good for diversifying the solutions, bringing new solutions, new technologies, and shaking a bit the industry as a whole. So I think that's a good deal in the end. But clearly, the two big challenges in the years to come: access to growth capital and access to public contracts.
What is your take on that, Herman? And then after that, we'll take the question here from the audience.
Well, I would entirely agree with all what was said. I would simply add, let's not make the assumption that this becomes now a private invested economy, because 85%, and that is true in the US as well, and China certainly, is public money. So it is true you need the scale-up funding. We have cases like Exploration Company that just raised 150 million, so that is another excellent case. And we need contracts, but also this, we need to scale that. And you mentioned Earth observation, you mentioned launchers. Earth observation is 4% of the space economy, launchers maybe 2%. So that is not really where the money is. It is something you should be doing for many reasons, but this is not the only thing that we can do to really scale. Now, IRIS² will be the big thing. I could now make comments on how a consortium came together. There have been voices, we all know it, that startups and new space didn't really feel recognized. Let's see. I hope this is a true opportunity, because this is a much, much bigger market we should not miss. And just for those that may not be completely in the know, even there would not be Starlink, there would not be Falcon 9, and there would be no Starship without the International Space Station and without 4 billion invest by NASA at the early stage. So this is a model we need to follow. You talked about contracts. This is anchor customership. This is early adopters on a big scale. This has given birth to something that today looks completely commercial, when in reality it is entirely anchored next to excellent entrepreneurship, but it's financially first entirely anchored in public money. And we need to scale up that. The principle is fully agreed. We come back to the scale.
Thank you very much for that, Herman. Here's a question. What kind of an ecosystem do the panel foresee over the next 10 years?
Want to start? I can start.
Sure.
Okay. I think what we see right now is, short answer is full value chain. We need every element, from the launcher to the downstream. We had excellent examples today, from mining to others. This is what we need to nurture. Everybody has only been talking about launchers. Launchers are critical. You need them for autonomous access. They are 2% of the economy. If you only talk about launchers, you miss it. If tomorrow you only talk about large-scale integrators, you miss the point. You have the SMEs, you have the providers, you have the downstream. You need to know what you put in the rocket, and what you put in the rocket has to have a purpose. And only if you have a purpose, and I come to the internal market that Guillaume mentioned, the internal market is key. We need a European internal market, and I say European, not only EU, a European internal market to feed that chain. And then the rest will happen. Then you will have the downstream industry, you will have the SMEs, you will have the integrators, you will have the rockets.
Yeah. Just like to add something here in terms of ecosystem, because I think the trap that we face is that we talk among others, so it's really the space bubble, if you want. And I think one of the big asset of space is actually it's an enabler. It's not an end as such. it is, it's an enabler for for other policies to be implemented. And what we need is that space is very much seen as that enabler that can support finance, health, agricultural policy, and all that. But this is where, because this is this downstream economy that can rapidly expand and where we have a huge potential. So, on one side, we have all the assets that we need upstream, so the satellites, world-class constellations that are delivering high-quality data and services, but we need to ensure that we have policies that are using those data and services. And for me, this is part of the ecosystem, that we need to bring in these end users that are very far away from space. We need to fire them much closer to the space ecosystem, so that space is really irrigating the entire economy. So how to get there? This is very complex. I mean, we are struggling with that for many years. ESA has put together accelerators. Now we are on the Commission side, we have some work to do on the space data economy. But this is, in the end of the day, the ultimate goal of what we want to achieve. We are not developing satellites for the sake of developing satellites. We want to develop satellites for what's happening on Earth. And that's the point. That's what we need to get.
Is this time frame of 10 years? Is this like
10 years is too late.
Was it too late? I was about to ask. Maybe
way too late. But it will take us 10 years, yes.
10 years. Again, I would violently agree. It is, by the way, it can be a European way to do things, because it wouldn't be about going to the moon or just doing security and defense. It really would bring space to the benefit of pharmaceutical and health. We had examples already this morning. It is a painful way, because somebody said that people don't understand each other. They don't even talk the same language. If you go on the board level of a big corporation, how much they will know about space. I could say the same for a health minister. How much would he know how space can contribute to his objectives? I would even say for a digital ministry, it may be the same. So there's an enormous task to get space in a policy debate of other ministries, call them user ministries, and to get space on the board of companies that can become true commercial users of space and also investors of space. And the US do not really do this, because NASA goes to explore the universe. This is not in their mandate. And the DoD is busy with security and defense. It is painful, it is something we can do. And if we do this, I actually believe we could actually scale up the financing of space, because it would no longer only come from a space budget. And weather forecasting satellites, this is billion invest, they come from transport ministries. It is not a space budget.
Thank you very much for your take on that. Thank you for your question. Also, any questions here from the audience? Just raise your hand, we can get you a microphone. Be part of the conversation. Don't be shy. This is your chance. Okay, you still have a couple of minutes. So, what role do you think new space companies and startups will play, actually, if we take a look at a global scale and take a look at traditional players? Like, what impact do you think can European startups have on these big traditional players?
Okay. So, different things. One is speed, because they are very eager to do things in a speedy manner, which is good. So, one is speed. Second thing is new industrial processes. You have what we see is kind of tendency in certain well-advanced new space companies to verticalize things, to avoid having too many suppliers. Because if you have too many suppliers, you don't control actually your supply chain. If one is late, the entire product is late. So you have this kind of tendency to verticalize things, the way it was done in the US actually. And when they start verticalizing, they start developing new products, new services as well. So that's quite interesting to see that. But when I mean new industrial processes, is really they are importing 3D printing, automated ways of doing things. So speed, again, is very much in the essence of what they're doing. And of course, I mean, because what they're looking for is a new ways of doing, again, I'm really back on this new way of doing space, but they're looking for public contracts. So they're willing to have the chance to deliver something on time and high quality product. So it has a change on the way we will do procurement in terms of simplification and speed. So it may have a big impact on the European space policy as a whole, if you see what I mean. Because indeed, what we want is less delays and less extra costs. So I think it may help us, in a way, to get there.
Main element, speed.
Yeah.
Your take. What about your take, Herman?
Well, I think they are key to get new energy in the whole ecosystem. This is also what happened in the US and elsewhere. This is a no-brainer. This is a new kid on the block, and with all you said, this is processes, agility, entrepreneurship, speed. This is all true. I think the art is that they are still part of this bigger ecosystem I mentioned before. So if we do not manage to get the bigger animals living and growing as well, I think the whole ecosystem will not be able to carry and deliver. I think what would happen to the most successful companies in Europe, I think you said it before, they will migrate. Intellectual property rights may go elsewhere, production sites may go elsewhere, and if you're good enough, you may be bought. And that is nice for those that sell. It is not so good for Europe. And we have the talent. We need to make sure that they can grow into this ecosystem with the attributes we mentioned.
Here's another question from the audience. European collaboration is central to the future of our space economy. How is EU collaboration central to the new space approach of entrepreneurship and innovation?
This is an excellent question, to be honest, because so new space brings a lot, but one of the drawbacks is, again, renationalization of space policy, because each member state, through new startups and scale-ups, is willing to push national champions. So it's good for competition because we have more players, but again, the drawback is renationalization of space policy, and that is happening right now. Question is, how much EU or ESA should intervene there, or should we just let it go and have a purely market-driven approach? Because of course, I mean, those players, and that will happen, some of them will go bankrupt, they will do like partnerships, they will do M&As, so you will have naturally a phase of reconsolidations of that industry. That will certainly happen. The question is, again, are we interventionists, or do we just let it go, and then the market will decide? Naturally, I would go for kind of more market-driven approach, because this new space company is very much market-driven. So let's see what will happen, and not too much interference of public authorities to go there. We can incentivize, for some business segments to say, if you collaborate, you may get access to certain programs and all that. But I would refrain from being too much interventionists.
Do you agree with that?
It's very tricky. Let's just take a real case. The biggest real case right now is Iris Square. 12 billion, it probably will be more than that. And it has two objectives in the regulation. One is to provide governmental services, so that's the secure part for institutional requirements, and that is what has given birth to it, if you want. But it also says allow commercialization. And I think this is really the playing field where industry should have the true opportunity to use maybe the same satellite bus, maybe with other payloads, use the same orbits and frequency, use a subset of an infrastructure, but to do airline connectivity, direct to handheld, you name it, to develop IoT, to develop all these markets that have applications behind on something that really comes from an institutional side with governmental objectives, but at the same time gives a platform from which to grow much, much more. And I think the much, much more can be 10 times more, and maybe 100 times more. And I really hope that in this specific case, and we do not have two of them today in Europe, this is one. It's the biggest new investment in space, and I think we need to manage to get these two objectives, do justice to the two. Secure connectivity for the public side and market opportunity for the private, including new space.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Once again, looking at the time, we're always like, wow, where did those 35 minutes go? But thank you both for joining us. Let's give them a big round of applause. Herman and Guillaume, it's been my pleasure. Have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Enjoy the rest of the conference. And you're sticking around also. If there are any questions for the next break, we can approach you directly.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.